Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Vadim Peskov with us. He's CEO and co-founder at Diffco, an advisor at Alchemus Accelerator. He's hiring if you want a job. We're going to talk about Diffco. We're going to talk about mentoring. We're going to talk about software and, of course, AI today. He's in SF. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico. This podcast is brought to you by podparty.com. If you want to start your own podcast, monetize it through YouTube AdSense checks, through sponsors paying your podcast, and through lead generation through your podcast, you can go to podparty.com. We have a free ebook helping you start your own AI podcast this year. Vad, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thanks for inviting. It's always fun to talk. It's a lot of things that happening. So it's probably the most exciting time for AI is every day that happening now. Like a couple of years ago, we didn't even know what is going on, and we had an idea about ML models, etc., and almost no one had any ideas what is a transformer is, and now everyone using them on a day-to-day basis, and each advancement next day is really exciting.
And at first it was terrifying, right? So people were freaking out. We thought that AGI would happen out of LLMs that don't scale typically. If anything, it would come from DeepMind most probably. And people were also, I think it was on the back end of COVID, people were in this fear mindset that also AI would replace their jobs, right? And also I remember founders and CEOs specifically fearing not to get up to date with everything new that was happening, right? So how did that fade out, and what's the landscape today?
The first important thing, I think, the fears of everyone not to follow what is going on is absolutely real, because it's almost impossible nowadays to see the full picture because there's too many things happening in everyday life, basically. Also a lot of things that happened last week with this DeepSeek R1 model, for example, and now everyone is jumping on and telling how this will change the game, and it's actually changing the game really dramatically. But in terms of replacing humans with AI, I think in some levels it will be true, but in most cases it will enhance. So you will have people that will be able to perform more. So basically, we had a manual agriculture at some point, and now we have machines that doing the job. And yeah, it's reducing number of people, but it's providing us much more quality on a same amount of hours that humans spend there. So it's basically a tool, and the question how you use this.
And is DeepSeek really changing anything? Because I'm still I have DeepSeek on my phone, right? Miraculously, I could install their app, but they still seem to be having this dumb message, malicious attacks. Okay, sure, your system is not built for scale. That's what it means. So we can't even sign up to it. It doesn't even look like a real business to me. It seems like total BS, and I don't know why it inflamed people all of a sudden. They're speculating that it was built on $5 million. So why is this actually changing the game? I'm just not seeing how.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, the point is, what you just demonstrated, it is an interface of the chatbot, and what I'm talking about is a actual implication of the model. So it's a little bit different playbook. So let me allow a little bit more context here. So we have a DeepSeek app that you can download, or the web interface that you showed right now. This is their model that running in Chinese servers, etc. But also they open source the whole model. They also open weight model. So they also published weights for the model. So it's allowing you to do a lot of things when you're developing. So it's allowing you to take this model and use proprietary on-premise locally, or in your own data center, or in Amazon, wherever, and do not share data with anyone. So it is free model to use. You can use this in a commercial purposes, and this is amazing. And this is the quality of the model that basically supersede current llamas in some ways, and as well as OpenAI's. Again, it's kind of controversial because new O3 model is also quite interesting in some ways. But the main point here is a cost. It is 10 times more compute that you can do. So basically, it's 10 times cheaper in some cases. If you, depending how you do this, is up to 20 times cheaper. This is crazy downscale. So it's and again, you can use DeepSeek model in for the development, but also if you need this to do some your own stuff, you can use it through Perplexity, for example, and it's US hosted, and it will not share your data with Chinese servers, basically. So again, the big glimpse about this, that they took something that was really complex model, and again, they also claiming that they spent $6 million on a training there, which is partially not true because they also prepared a lot of data, and most likely they utilize OpenAI models to train from this. So it is really controversial in many, many cases. But the point is, they have the model and it's performing really great, and they have completely different approaches that was not possible before. And this is really good ask for the OpenAI and for other vendors there to say, hey, why your product is more expensive? Why you doing the same thing but slower? And again, it's a lot of political parts into this conversation, obviously, but in the same way, it will allow us to use this in many use cases and become much more advanced with AI.
Right. Game changing for founders, I guess, is the message here. It's just what I mean. It's the content nowadays, right? Like AI hypers building content on, oh my God, ChatGPT is dead, now it's DeepSeek. That part, yeah, obviously that's disinformation, right? Because chat is such a tool for the users. And I think my point about the UX and the users is just like, as a company, right? DeepSeek is nowhere near ready to even compete with OpenAI. And also what's been interesting after that is to see Sam Altman over execute in the next 7 days, right? There was Operator, then there was Deep Research. Have you studied these two?
Yeah, so they have a lot of interesting releases there. My point is, it is a really technical thing. So it's not like, hey, we release something that better for users yet. Again, the point is, if they were able to do this at current state, and how they will perform in the next iterations. So this is really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's exciting. And it's also stimulating an arms race, right? Like who will get there first. So it's very good for the industry overall. What are your thoughts on operators and the future of agents and deep research?
I mean, right now, like everything is agent based, basically. Yes, so it's even this R1 model that we actually talked right now. So this is again multiple agents that communicated between each other. So this is something new because like previously in a other different reasoning model, it was like 4 agents. Now it's like around 50, if I remember correctly. So it's different things. So they actually brought a lot of interesting ideas and did things differently that was not possible before. In terms of the agents and like utilizing this for day-to-day operations, I think this is really interesting playbook. And again, I'm using this every day to do whatever I need to do there. Again, at some levels, it can do a lot of automations, and this is freaking wonderful. You can automate a lot of things. Again, it's still not on a level that you can hire this person and say, hey, do everything. So you still need to guide it. But my point is, you can really become a superhuman with this if you do things right. But also if you push this into direction on like, hey, what will happen like in half a year? Probably it will be almost like employee that you will be able to say, hey, let's do this. Again, it's probably will be junior level, etc. It can do a lot of research, but it still will have a IQ of probably junior person. But in the same way, it probably will cost you like another $20 or $50 per month, which is much better than hiring human that will cost probably an hour for the same amount of money.
Right. And for the audience, I just want to share a bit more about R1 here. Like I said, I couldn't get it on my desktop. So yeah, we have to follow my phone here. So that's my phone here. What's cool about it is that it shows it's thinking, right? And I think Outment in its next deployment of O3 Mini, the O3 model of ChatGPT, it's starting to show its reasoning, right? Yeah, you
Yes.
brought an important point here. I think yeah, it's agent based. That's quite exciting. My question for you, at first, right? Like you're working with some founders that are building AI apps. Should they all try to go after their own LLM and their proprietary data, or should they build on open AIs, for example, or R1?
Yeah, so listen, it is two approaches nowadays. Basically, approach number one is, let's say, basically take whatever private provider, closed source provider you prefer, and this is basically your Anthropics, your OpenAI, and your Googles. Yeah. So in this case, I think this is great providers, and they have quite interesting models. The truth is, they have multiple models. Even again, OpenAI or Google, etc. So, for example, new Google deep research model, it is absolutely amazing. Again, it's kind of like similar to Pro version for OpenAI and Sonnet for Anthropic in this case. So this is interesting models that you can combine depending on the task. In many cases, you can use combination of the model. So you will run something on, let's say, O1 Mini or any other models, and you can ask to perform more complicated tasks using different models. So this is the point of combining. Again, I think open source is great when you need to have two things. One, it will probably most likely will be cheaper to do, and it's many options that you can just deploy Llama or DeepSeek right now almost in a few clicks. So it's absolutely great there. So it will be cheaper than running other models. Again, it will in some cases require more knowledge to do something like this. But again, if you're trying to do more complicated type of task, you probably would need to go open source. So this is the direction that you will be in depth. But also, again, you can run this DeepSeek and Llamas on Grok, for example, which is even more cheaper. So again, the question is, it is how important this pricing for you, and how important for you is customization. Because again, it doesn't make sense to always use the tractor to, again, go to the Starbucks, for example. Yeah. So you will probably just take a car. In the same way, again, it doesn't make sense to use the pro model of OpenAI to solve as simple tasks, because it will be more expensive, it will eat more gas, and basically doesn't really helping you to solve the issue. So again, combining, I think it's making sense. Again, I'm a big believer in open source, and I think this is where we will have a lot of advancements. Because if you only have 3-4 companies that doing this, is a closed source, it's an arm race that doesn't really benefit a lot of things. And I think what this Meta is doing with Llama, I think this is the right approach moving forward.
Right. And isn't Sam Altman like really cost conscious for the founders he's serving through the API? Isn't there a way for the API to make a decision? Okay, this question is this prompt, I should use this model and consume the less data and money possible.
Yeah, I mean, the cost is really important. Speed is also important here. So again, on a use cases, there's many use cases where you can say, okay, I'm totally fine spending more money on this. So for example, if you're doing your own research and you're like, hey, it is a question that I will pay another $2 per month. It's like, okay, I don't really care. But my point is, if on a scale you're running something where each additional percentage there, it is crazy important. And sometimes the cost of running those models is 20, 30 times difference. So this is where it becomes really important. Because when we get to this scale, it is like question is like when we had this industrial revolution, yeah. So everyone like, hey, we will have more gas and more oil, etc. And what has actually result? It's more production, it's more industrializations, it's more tools that we can use. And the same with AI. So when we will have more AI, again, the general purpose models that we talking about right now, like OpenAI or DeepSeek or Alchemus, this is all commodities. So they will become, or by end of the day, something that abundant. So you can use this, etc. So it's not a problem. The business is not in this topic. The same as like business was not in like, hey, selling oil. The actual value that was created is because of this. So we had oil, and because of this, we created plastics. Because of the plastics, we created a lot of other things. So it's again like building one on top of another. So AI is just a layer. It's not the end-to-end solution, basically.
Okay, so what's the analogy for OpenAI? Like, what's their oil? Is it data, and what's the byproduct here?
I think the oil there is still basically electricity and oil in some cases.
Yeah, it's a big problem, actually. These data centers, they're just over-consuming.
Yeah, but also, again, the mechanics there, I mean, if we even look into the examples of, let's say, the simpler question about like California and electric vehicles, if we change everything in every car in California for electric car, would basically need to double the capacity for electricity. And again, I'm not talking about like, hey, how complex the grid need to become. I'm talking only about the production. And this is, again, is crazy expensive right now. And again, this is why we need to push back on nuclear and say, hey, we need nuclear, we need more renewables, etc. Because again, we can bring more resources and we can move humanity forward as well as United States. So this is the key component. Again, right. The data is the solution. And again, all these models, just to be clear, they all actually works with the same data. They trained basically on the same data. Again, slightly different, but like 80% is absolutely the same.
Okay. Okay. So the gold mine, who's selling the shovels? I would guess sort of NVIDIA and the nuclear company, for example, that Sam Altman invested in. Now, I have other questions. We'll try to rapid fire, right? But why are they training on the same data? Like, isn't it a moat to train on proprietary data or only select a specific amount of data?
So basically, the OpenAI and like any other company, so they will use some crawlers that will scrub the internet basically, and they will get all this data, and they will use this for pre-training. Again, so it's a difference between pre-training, training, post-training, etc. But the point is, they will most of them will use the same data. Again, on the question of reasoning, again, DeepSeek, for example, used OpenAI to train. So basically, they were asking not their own system; they were asking like OpenAI the questions, and they used. I think it was a small number. I think it was around 800,000 or something like this questions that they used, and they trained based on this. So again, the data could be different. So, for example, you can take some open source model, and you can take the your proprietary information that you can have, and you can put it in a RAG or train the model on this data. So many enterprise companies will actually go and do this. And the gold mine is actually not for OpenAIs to change something with open data, because again, by the end of the day, all of these models will have the same access to public data. It is a question of actually like having the access to more real-time data or more private data. So for example, Grok with Twitter having access to real-time tweets, or YouTube having to YouTube, etc.
Right, but Google just doesn't stand a chance. They're too corporate. They're not fast-moving enough. Why isn't ChatGPT taking my data if I would get a better product?
Do you mean like why they do not taking it from where?
Yeah, my personal chats. They don't
They
take
they,
it.
they use this. They use
Are you
this.
sure?
Yes, absolutely. They actually like if you set up right now, if you active user of OpenAI, and you set up right now a new account, it will not be so personalized to the questions. It will a little bit more dumber from your perspective. Again, it's not dumber. It's just like not using your data specifically. Again, they will use your data and they will know a lot of things about you. So you can just ask ChatGPT, hey, tell me about me. Like, what do you know? And it will share a lot of data. Again, the question is, if you actually share this data with ChatGPT before, again, it will not be able to get something that you have on your computer, etc.
Um, from what I've read, they've never used our data, and then it says it's not actively using. But I do know what you're referring to. Yeah, taking the settings and privacy and the data that I share.
Yeah,
Are
you can download this data and see. Yeah,
shared links, export data, improve the model for everyone, allow your content to be used to train your model.
yeah. So
That's
they using this. Yes. So again, it's more personalized for you versus again um, other users. Again, and like right now, it's a lot of interesting fun hacks that probably exist for small period of time when you can ask certain things for from many accounts, and it would basically do SEO in ChatGPT. Because again, like you can it will scroll the web, but also it will think that, hey, if 10,000 users actually looked up this company, they will actually end up recommending this as well. So it's again, it's they using this data for sure.
right, and that's why Apple is so far behind the race. They're still in the woke keep your own data world, right? Which never ever made sense. I want to
Yeah.
come back to yeah. Now that we are sort of out of time, just come back on like if I would start my AI startup today, if I decide to use an open source model, what's in it for these company open sourcing the model? Am I consuming their data? Am I paying them to use the actual model? And do they retain the data? Is that the advantage here?
Depends. So if you take in let's say Llama, and you can deploy this using many other providers, etc. Wherever you prefer. So you can go to Hugging Face, you can go to Amazon, you can go to other providers. Doesn't matter. So you can deploy this and use this absolutely fine. Again, you will not share the data with them or anyone else. Again, if you set up the system this way. Again, the question is the model is commodity. It's not a question of the model. The question is how you implement this in your products. I mean, let's say Facebook, they use the same model, but again, because they have this ability to provide you a lot of value inside of Facebook, they can help you write better posts. They can help you to create much better ads or target better people, etc. So again, the point is how you utilize this. Again, this is just a tool. So you can take this hammer and do nothing with this, or you can again take the hammer and create and build a house. So this is the question: is not how you use the and deploy these things. Again, it's the question how you utilize this. So again, from the founder perspective, again, if you want to retain the data, open source is the way to go. But also, in many cases, for the simpler products, which is not AI heavy, etc., you can just use again mix of models from other providers. We have many products that we built where we take in, let's say, OpenAI and Anthropic, and we mix in them. Just it depends on the model. But to be exact, every couple of months we actually will change things and say, hey, Anthropic is actually performing much better. Let's take and do this. Or hey, OpenAI released a new thing and it's cheaper, etc. The same for open source. So you just changing constantly, and it's allowing you to maintain better quality, but also reducing price by end of the day.
Vadim, thank you for today. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, feel free to find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. So my name is Vadim Peskov in both platforms, as well as you can find a little bit more information about Diffco at diffco.us.
I was